Therefore, you can see what has happened to the greenhouses over the past 3 years. Here, you see polystyrene boards installed at the bottom. In this greenhouse, the spotlights consume about 20 kW. Let's go to the next greenhouse. Here, cherry tomatoes are growing, by the way, cultivated using organic technology. There are no chemicals here, everything is natural. Good day. My name is Alexander, and today I wanted to tell you about our greenhouses. We are going to one of the greenhouse complexes that we built 3 years ago. We are going for a technical audit and inspection of our greenhouses after 3 years of operation. These greenhouses are located in one of the, so to speak, collective farms that have become private property. It's interesting to see if there is a future for agriculture. The fact is that if we look at farms of the Soviet Union era, in principle, they have no prospects. Even if they are restored and modernized, they are generally not very competitive. Only modern cultivation technologies can bring good profits. Only such enterprises will be able to operate effectively. Why? Because, well, firstly, in such farms, it is necessary to constantly monitor and control which crops are currently in demand. That is, if now, for example, blueberries have become popular and are in demand, then part of the land should be allocated for the cultivation of such profitable crops. Only by experimenting and combining various systems can one obtain a profitable enterprise. This is a farm enterprise, meaning it is gradually being modernized and restored, but in general, without new technologies, without directions for development that are marginal, profitable, and trending, that is, by working only according to the classics, everything will remain at the same level as before. Here are our 2 greenhouses, and we are now arriving at them, and we'll see what has happened there after 3 years, and we will tell you what happens to film greenhouses during operation. So, here we have arrived at our greenhouses. Now, first we will do an external inspection of our structures, and then we will go inside. As you can see, there is a symbiosis of polycarbonate and film here, so you can see what has happened to both materials over, you could say, 3 years. Here is our cellular polycarbonate. It looks more or less adequate in principle. The film, also 3 years old, has not lost its transparency. Despite the fact that everything is sealed, dust and insects still get inside. They usually accumulate here because all the moisture flows down here. By the way, this is one of the problems in the winter period because water almost accumulates here. Warm air is blown between the layers of film, there it cools down, passes the dew point, and all this water rolls down here. So, this is a problematic point. Overall, in principle, the film looks normal, well inflated. Here you see polystyrene boards installed at the bottom. This is to block the cold in winter because cold air blows quite strongly from underneath. To prevent this, they dig into the ground and put polystyrene boards on top. Side ventilation, by the way, you can see how much water can accumulate inside. Where can the water come from? Well, it's most likely that there are microcracks somewhere, and rainwater then gets in there. When it's hot, it evaporates. But in general, in low points, since the pipe twists more or less, somewhere it's over-tightened and somewhere it's a little lower, a little higher, you can see, that is, we have a low point, you can see the water level. That is what gets inside. You can even take a small needle and pierce it, make a small hole. If water accumulates there, there will be a small drain. That is, a small hole will not affect the system as a whole. The mosquito net has not crumbled. Well, the film has stood for 3 years without any particular changes, so to speak. One of the points is that the dust that gets inside settles, but in principle, the moisture that also gets in there accumulates on the film and, so to speak, washes it away, and all this dirt accumulates here. Sometimes there is even a whole layer of dirt right at the joints. Here it's normal because there are nets in the fans, and not much dust gets in there. In principle, everything is alive. Well, of course, these end plate problems often occur. They are usually screwed in with self-tapping screws so that they don't fall out, but most often they do fall out. 3 years have passed, the silicone used for the sealant has not crumbled. Since the section is small, the cells run horizontally on the sheets up to 1.5 meters. Moisture simply doesn't have time to accumulate in large quantities to tear the cells. Therefore, the structure has stood for 3 years, that is, there is no moisture or anything inside. The main thing is that all the cells are sealed well. So, let's move on. The greenhouse is in the off-season, which is why we were called, so that we could deal with minor problems. The main problem is the drip tube. Non-working drippers have appeared, something has stopped working, holes have appeared somewhere, so we need to deal with the drip tube. The spotlights here were still old models. There are chokes with aluminum windings, so there is a certain percentage of failure with them too. We also need to deal with them. Well, and in principle, ideally, to switch to LEDs is the overall task, because, well, here in this greenhouse, the spotlights consume about 20 kW per hour, and in the one next to it, it's about 30, and the light flow is not that much. That is, the plants often don't have enough. Let's go further into the next part of the greenhouse. Our structures consist of easily assembled elements in the form of trusses and have good load-bearing capacity. They can easily withstand any trellising, up to 25 kg according to technical specifications, but I suspect there is much more load here. Considering how many spotlights and how much everything hangs on this entire truss, plus they then suspend the plants, the load is colossal, but the trusses withstand it calmly, plus the snow load when it occurs. These greenhouses have survived 2 full winters, that is, they have been in operation for 3 years and have seen 2 winters. Well, this greenhouse is kind of waiting for its time. It's the off-season and will be launched in September. We reached the control panel. The lid is already lost somewhere. It's 30 degrees Celsius in the greenhouse. It seems all the automation is working. This is forced ventilation. Overall, everything is working. Let's go to the vestibule. Here we have a vestibule, and here we had a seedling compartment. One tank is 3 cubic meters, and the second tank was for fertilizer. In principle, overall, everything should work despite the operation process. Let's go to the next greenhouse. That greenhouse is still kind of working. It is higher and designed for growing tall crops. As far as I understand, these are some of the last harvests. Cherry tomatoes are growing here. You can compare the indicators here, in that greenhouse. When the forced ventilation wasn't working, the temperature was 30 degrees Celsius, while here it's 25-26 degrees Celsius, so the indicators are about 4 degrees lower. The temperature here is absolutely comfortable for both people and plants. What we additionally did ourselves was insulate around the perimeter by 50 cm and dig down 50 cm around the perimeter and install polystyrene foam to block the cold in winter. What problems arose? Again, about 7-8% of the spotlights have failed over 3 years. I suspect it's the ballasts and the pulse igniters that start the lamps. With watering, the drip tape has partially stopped dripping in some places, and holes have appeared in others, so we need to deal with it. The spring period is now ending, and the last tomatoes are being harvested here. By the way, they are grown using organic technology, so there are no chemicals, everything is natural. So now, in a week or 2, all the last cherries and tomatoes will be harvested, and then there will be an off-season period during which we will modernize. What do we want? To make remote control of all processes in the greenhouse, that is, to install automation that allows us to control everything that happens in the greenhouse on a smartphone, temperature regime, lighting, humidity. So that this information comes to a control panel, and we can see not only the current indicators but also the statistics. It might happen that during certain periods there are temperature or humidity spikes or a lack of light somewhere, and it's difficult to understand what and why in static data. But when it's dynamic, you can see that the temperature was such at night and such during the day. The summary of all the main points that we discussed is the revision of the drip irrigation because, in principle, over 3 years, some damage has accumulated, and some drippers have failed. And accordingly, with lighting, if we take our lighting, some fixtures need to be checked. Some are working, some are not. These are natural things that always need to be done before preparing for a new season. Considering that it has worked for 3 years, the condition is quite good, and periodic inspection and periodic maintenance will allow your greenhouses to work significantly longer than the so-called warranty period. The main thing is a schedule of what, where, and how needs to be reviewed and to monitor everything in general, because everything likes order, including the greenhouse. With you is Alexander from Eco Greenhouse. Well, we visited one of our structures that we built. The overall condition is good. I am satisfied. The structure is working. Only a certain percentage of the lights need to be checked and possibly repaired. And the drip irrigation, that is, the drip irrigation and foggers also need to be brought to an ideal state. When building a greenhouse, you always need to consider a certain expense item. You can allocate about 3–5% per year of the greenhouse cost specifically for routine repairs, because, well, considering that warranty obligations are included during construction, they cover most of the main construction costs. If something suddenly breaks down due to technical reasons, it is a warranty case, and repairs are performed. There are simply mechanical damages that are not related to the warranty case. In general, there is a warranty obligation for the main elements for the first 2 to 3 years. For example, the same spotlights have a 1-year warranty, so often after 3 years, they start to fail. Despite the fact that the drip tube has a warranty of 3–5 years, depending on the manufacturer, the main reason for its failure is clogged nozzles. These are mechanical damages that are not directly related to warranty operation. Therefore, in principle, starting from 3 years of greenhouse operation, you need to allocate about 5% of the construction cost for some ongoing expenses, and then this should gradually increase to 5, 7, 10%. And in principle, after 5 years of greenhouse operation, major repairs should be carried out, something is restored, something is replaced. These are the main points that I wanted to tell you about the greenhouse business, the greenhouse direction. With you is Alexander from Eco Greenhouse. Until next time, and good harvests to you.